How much is it actually going to cost to heat your house this winter? Think about it for a second. The cost to heat your home depends entirely on the average daily temperature outside, right? But that average temperature depends on exactly what day of the year it is. Notice what just happened there? We literally just defined two separate mathematical relationships linked together in a chain. The cost depends on the temperature, and the temperature depends on the day. So here's the big question. Can we combine these two separate steps into one single, clean mathematical step? Absolutely. By the end of this explainer, you are going to understand the core concept of function composition, the exact algebraic formula behind it, and exactly how to apply it step by step to solve real-life chain reaction problems just like this one.
All right, let's dive right into section 1. What exactly is function composition? We're essentially talking about putting one function completely inside another.
When you see this mathematical notation, that little open circle between the f and the g, we read that out loud as f composed with g at x. Or honestly, most of the time we just say f of g of x. I want you to think of this process like a machine inside of a larger machine. You take your initial input, our variable x, and you drop it straight into that inner machine, g. That machine does its thing, cranks some gears, and churns out an output, which we call g of x. Then, and this is the crucial part, you take that entire output and drop it straight into the outer machine, f. The output of the inside function legally becomes the brand new input for the outside function.
Wait, pause for a second, because this is super important. I have to point out literally the most common student mistake in all of algebra. Function composition, f of g of x, is completely 100% different from simply multiplying two functions together. They might look kind of similar on a textbook page if you're just skimming, but composing functions is about chaining a sequential process together from the inside out. It is not just multiplying two results side by side. Don't fall for that trap. Now, math is really just a language we use to describe the world around us. So let's connect this concept to some real-life scenarios to see how it works. Let's walk through an analogy. Say S of t represents the number of sit-ups a person can do in t minutes. So S of 3 is the exact number of sit-ups you crushed in exactly 3 minutes. Make sense? Now let's say C of S tells us the number of calories burned per sit-up. So what happens if we write C of S of 3? Well, we're taking the total sit-ups done in 3 minutes, that is our crucially important inner output, and we are dropping that number directly into our calorie formula. The final result? The total calories you burned in exactly 3 minutes of exercise. It's a perfect chain reaction. Let's try another real-world example to really lock this in. Say f of x equals the miles you drove in x hours, and g of y equals the gallons of gas your car used to drive those y miles. Notice how the output of that first function, the miles you just drove, is the exact required input for the second function. It calculates the gas used based on those miles. So g of f of x works perfectly here. But now you might be asking a very logical student question. Hey, what if we just reverse this order? Does f of g of y make sense? Well, think about what that's actually asking. G of y spits out a number in gallons of gas, right? But the outer function, f, is expecting time in hours as its input. Dropping gallons of gas into a mathematical function that requires hours is completely meaningless. It's like trying to pay for your groceries with Monopoly money. The input and output units have to logically match up for composition to work at all. So now that we've got the basic idea of machines inside machines, and we see why order deeply matters in the real world, let's look at the algebra behind it. Here's a question to test your intuition. In basic math, you know that 2 times 3 gives you the exact same answer as 3 times 2. That's commutativity. But with function composition, does f of g of x equal g of f of x? Does the order of the machines matter when we're dealing with pure math equations? What do you think? Well, this example brilliantly illustrates the answer. Let's take two simple functions. F of x equals 2x plus 1, and g of x equals 3 minus x. If we substitute the entirety of g into f, meaning we replace the x in the f function with the whole phrase 3 minus x, the math gives us 2 times the quantity 3 minus x plus 1. Simplify that and you get 7 minus 2x. But if we do the exact reverse, substituting f into g, we end up with 3 minus the phrase 2x plus 1, which simplifies to a completely different result, negative 2x plus 2. You see that? The order of composition radically changes the final equation. Composition is absolutely not commutative. All right, let's make this much easier and actually evaluate these composite functions step by step using some clear data. Now, what's really cool about looking at a data table like this is how incredibly simple it is to trace, as long as you don't panic. Let's say we want to evaluate f of g of 3 using this data. First step, guide your eyes to find the inner function. What is g when x is 3? Look at the third row under the g of x column. The answer is 2. Now take that 2 and plug it right back into the x column for our outer function f. When x is 2, looking under the f of x column, the output is 8. So f of g of 3 is simply 8. See? Always work inside out. And guess what? We can do the exact same thing with pure algebraic formulas. Let's take an outer function, f of t equals t squared minus t, and an inner function, h of x equals 3x plus 2. If we want to evaluate f of h of 1, here is our exact game plan. Step 1, strictly evaluate that inner function, h of 1. Step 2, use whatever number that spits out as your brand new input for the outer function, f. Let's trace it together. First up, we calculate the inside function's output. We take our specific numerical input, which is 1, and drop it into h of x. So 3 times 1 plus 2 equals 5. Boom, our inner machine worked perfectly and handed us a nice, solid number. Next, we take that 5 and plug it directly into our outer function. We replace every single t in the formula, f of t equals t squared minus t, with our new input, 5. So that gives us 5 squared minus 5. And 25 minus 5 gives us 20. That is our final answer. Honestly, whenever you see a composition problem like this on an exam, please don't get overwhelmed by the alphabet soup of letters. Just remember this inside-out evaluation method. Calculate the inside completely, take the resulting number, and hand it cleanly over to the outside. Now, you might be asking a slightly deeper question here. Are there restrictions on what numbers we can use? Are all numbers legally allowed in these chained function machines? Let's talk about finding the domain. Let's highlight this absolutely crucial rule. It states that the domain consists of only those inputs in the domain of the inner function g that produce outputs that legally belong to the domain of the outer function f. In plain English, the number you start with must not break the inner function, no dividing by 0 or taking the square root of a negative, and the result it spits out must not break the outer function either. If either machine breaks at any point, the entire chain reaction is totally undefined. Before we wrap up, let's look at one final really neat skill. We're going to reverse the process and break a complex function apart into 2 simpler ones. This is called decomposing a function. If you're staring at a complicated function, like f of x equals the square root of 5 minus x squared, how do you split it up? Well, step 1 is to visually identify an inner expression. Notice how 5 minus x squared sits neatly bundled right there inside the square root symbol? Let's just make that our inner function. Step 2 is to define the outer function around it. If we magically replace that whole inside chunk with just a simple variable x, the outer function is just the square root of x. Once you spot that inside bundle, decomposition becomes incredibly easy. What an awesome journey through the mechanics of functions today. Let's quickly summarize the 3 absolute most important takeaways from this explainer. First, always evaluate from the inside out. Second, the order of composition completely changes your result. Remember, it is not commutative. And third, always double-check those domains to ensure your inner function's output actually fits safely into your outer function's domain. I am going to leave you with this one provocative thought to challenge you. We just proved that, in general, f of g of x does not equal g of f of x. But mathematically speaking, can you find 2 unique functions where f of g of x actually does equal g of f of x? Give it some thought. Play around with some equations on scratch paper, because finding that specific answer leads us directly into our next exciting lecture on inverse functions.